Welcome to the Tuesday edition of A Talkback, which is brought to you in part by Western Montana, New Holland, south of the Y on Highway 10, across from the Axemen, now offering special financing, 0 down up to 84 months on approved credit. AAA, it pays for itself with discounts on big brands. Join now, get a free canvas tote. Visit AAA.com/Montana. Selway Armory on Stockyard Road with more guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula. The best prices in Montana. They are Montana's premier firearms dealer. And by the Mustard Seed Asian Cafe in Southgate Mall. All right, it's kind of old home week here this morning, or kind of home week. The fabulous Sarah Jovitich joining us here this morning. How you doing, Sarah?
Not too bad. It's weird being on the other side of things.
I know. Well, see, I leave early in the morning, and you get here in the afternoon, so I hear you, but I never get to see you.
Right. We talk on the phone every now and then.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, can I give you more work? Can I give you more work? Can I give you more work? Yes, Peter. Yes, Peter.
Of course, Peter.
Anyway, that's John King over there.
Hey, good morning.
And also here in the studio, Joe Lasar and Keiko Sugami. How'd I do?
You did good. That's correct.
Thank you. First time out. So I get to stay in the room then.
Yes, I'll
All right.
stay.
So Sarah, tell us why you guys are here. You guys have put together a really impressive documentary that's actually airing on PBS, right?
Right. So last semester, the three of us were in a student documentary class at the University of Montana. And we kind of came together at the end of fall semester, just brainstormed some ideas for different documentaries we wanted to work on, and ended up coming up with the topic of autism. And so it just kind of went from there, and we finally get to see the final product tonight at 8 p.m.
So if you wouldn't mind, give us the focus. Well, who wants to? Joe, you're over there. Give us the overall picture of what this is about. I mean, what exactly are you looking at when it comes to autism? Are you looking at long range, short term? Are you looking at individual stories? What are you looking at in the documentary?
Well, our focus for this show was the title's Aging Out. So we were focusing on the kids that are kind of on the brink of leaving the public school system. 18 to 22ish.
Right, they're becoming adults.
Yes, and just that transition from childhood to adulthood, because the adult services are a little thinner than the child services. So there's kind of just an empty space for those individuals who are coming to that age.
Okay, so go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was curious how you picked the topic. You said that you were kind of had some competing ideas of what you would write about, but this one won overall. So what gave this one the edge for you?
Keiko?
Well, so what we actually did was we all came to the class with ideas, and basically the idea of aging out in the Autism Society basically kind of grew because we thought the original idea was going to be differences in care for rural versus urban. So whether you're in Cut Bank or Helena, what are the differences there? And so through talking with experts, we discovered that that's not necessarily as big of a gap as we thought it might have been. And really where people were falling through the cracks was one of the spots was adults. And so we thought, that's important, that's relevant, especially with legislation coming up. It would matter to a lot of people. And so we just thought we had the most to go on, and we went with it.
So what does the legislation coming up look like? Is that for the Montana legislative session or federal legislation or what?
So with the Montana legislative session, there's a lot of people that are pushing for change. So that makes this really current. There's moms that are pushing to extend the age limit so kids with special education can stay in school longer. There's a lot of differences and changes that people are trying to push for, and it's just a matter of when it's going to happen.
All right, so I guess I have a little bit of experience with this. From your view, what did you see as the main challenge? I guess, Sarah, I'll ask you this one. What do you see as the main challenge that people who are in that age category are looking at? Because in school, there's a structured time where you have to be there for a certain time. You're studying certain things. You get to know people. There's kind of a community that gathers around you. It's kept very supportive, that sort of thing. But when you're out of high school or going into a work environment, what's the most challenging thing that you found that these young people are facing?
Right. So as they're kind of aging out, to use the title, they're leaving school and things like that, the services are a lot more limited, especially in Montana. we found that a lot of the adults who may not have the care right here in Missoula, or for that matter, even in Montana, they had to really travel everywhere to get the care that these adults with autism need. And so that was really the big central focus.
What kind of care are you talking about?
So care can range just depending on the level of autism that person may have. So there's group homes in Montana. There's the workforce, that kind of thing, just depending on, I suppose, the severity of autism with that.
Because there are low functioning and there are
Correct.
high functioning folks who have autism,
Correct.
right? So yeah, and a lot of that you get to know as the child grows. You begin to understand and see what they're capable of and that sort of thing, and then that kind of sets the bar for where they head after that, right?
Right, and we saw a lot of that in our documentary too. We highlighted low functioning people with ASD and then high functioning, and just kind of saw, if we had early intervention here, if we saw more improvements through their lifetime, whereas those with high functioning may not have had that option for early intervention too. So it's cool to see all of the different types of, or the different aged people as we went through this process and see how they were coping with their services in different places.
So now that mental health kind of decentralized, each state kind of handles it differently. Did you compare Montana to other states? Do other states do a better job, do you think, or a worse job than Montana?
I mean, so in terms of like looking at who's better and who's worse, we can't really determine that. It's kind of opinionated. But statistically wise, Montana is on par with the nation as of 2009. A lot of changes went forward as far as children's services, but we haven't really caught up with adult services yet, I would say, personally, from talking with experts. For example, one area that Montana's really lacking is Montana's one of only 2 states in the nation that students can't continue past 19. And so that's one area that makes a difference.
Well, I think it might be helpful. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, I think we hear the word autism a lot these days. It's become, top of mind. But I think a lot of folks still don't really know exactly what it is. We know it's a condition. It's a mental health condition. But if you guys could come up with some definitions, especially when a child is very, very young and is initially diagnosed, that sort of thing, what kind of things they look for? Go ahead.
And also, if you're out there listening and you've dealt with autism personally or with your family and you've found some solutions or options that worked for your family, we'd love to hear them. I know they're done. There's stories in the can, but ours is just beginning. The number is 721-1290. Again, that's 721-1290.
Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number if we'd like to have you give us a call. Sarah and Joe and Keiko joining us here in studio talking about autism. Now, I asked before the break, we hear about autism a lot, but a lot of folks just don't know exactly what it is. Let's have a definition if there is one.
Yeah, so how we describe autism in our documentary is that it's a developmental disability that affects social and cognitive skills. And so basically that means that autism is going to affect each person in a different way. And because it's an autism spectrum disorder, there's so much variety in how severe it could be, whether you're low functioning, high functioning, and that just basically means how much help you'll need.
Okay. All right. So when mom and dad bring the baby home from the hospital, at about what point do they start to realize that there may be something going on here?
I mean, it can be different for everybody. There's one family in our story who felt like their kid was developing normally, so to speak, until he was about 2 years old, and then they started to notice him losing skills. So it can be such a range, or you can notice that your child just doesn't learn as quickly as others. I mean, the earlier you notice it, the better it is, because early intervention is key, but it's just, there's so much variety to this disorder.
Okay.
So you guys had mentioned there's like a hole or a gap when people age out. Well, what happens to most of the people in Montana that have autism severe enough to not be able to work in a regular workplace? Do they end up finding work? Do they go to a home, or do they just live at their own home with their parents, or what happens to most of them? Do you know?
Do you have a longitudinal study, basically, I guess is the thing we're looking for?
Just like you interviewed a number of people, right?
Yeah.
Did most of those people have regular jobs?
So I wouldn't necessarily call them jobs. I'd call them more volunteer opportunities that their parents have kind of created for them, whether or not that's working for someone but being compensated in something other than money, or just going somewhere to do what you would think of as a job, but just for fun and for social skills, basically. Most of the time what you'll see, and with talking to experts, what we've noticed is that a lot of people will just stay at home with their parents.
Okay. I'm trying to understand what that must be like for mom and dad, to realize that, we love our child, more than life itself. And yet the normal, if you will, the normal paradigm is they grow up, they have all these experiences, they get an education, they get a job, they move away, yada, 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 but in this, it's like things will stay the same forever and ever. So what is that like for the parents that you've talked to? I mean,
so what's really cool about one of the families is in Helena, they got their daughter Mackenzie her new individual living situation. So she's kind of working her into moving out, living on her own. She has different aides that help her along the way and will stay with her, help her cook meals, that kind of thing. But it was cool to see because, they do want to help them transition out of the home. And, if something were to happen to her parents at any point in time, she has this system set up. And we saw that with our Billings family also, just kind of trying to find different services to help them if the parents were to pass on, or in the case of the Billings family, they have a twin brother, who they thought, an ideal plan would be to have him step in and help and just make sure that they have everything in line to help them when that time comes and the parents pass on. But I think it's still fair to say that it's up for question, and
So because the title of your documentary is Aging Out. So what happens when, and do you have any statistics, or have you had a chance to look into what happens when someone with autism is in their 50s or 60s or becomes a senior citizen, or has that even happened yet? Are there any studies that, Joe or Sarah, Keiko, anything? Or is this a young enough, if you will, a young enough disorder that we really haven't gotten that far longitudinally?
So speaking to autism and the diagnosis of that, the increase in diagnosis rate has really just come kind of lately. I mean, it's more than doubled in the last 20 years.
Right.
So, I mean,
people
it's
are wondering what happened. All of a sudden, we're finding all these folks who are autistic. Is it because of the environment? Is it because of chemicals? Is it because of vaccines? I mean, there's all sorts of wild stuff rolling out there.
I mean, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
At least not that we've encountered through researching and studies. We can't say that there's any one thing that causes autism. It's just that it is increasing in rate, and it seems to have stabled out and plateaued, but the CDC says that it's too early to determine if that's actually true. So we don't know. It could keep increasing, but with how it's gone right now, because it's increasing at such a recent time, we can't really look forward and say that this is what's happening when they're 70 years old.
Sure.
We don't know that yet because they haven't aged out yet.
Right, exactly.
So you had mentioned some of the ways to fill the gaps. One of them was schooling, extending the time that people can stay in school. That sounds like a temporary fix for maybe 2 or 3 years. But long term, like what sort of things do you think Montana needs to put this piece of puzzle back together?
I mean, I think just more options for places for people with autism to go and live, or really just anybody with a developmental disability. A lot of families feel like there's not enough options, and so they're put on these waiting lists of 40 people or 90 people, and they don't know when a spot's going to open up because most of these are lifelong disabilities.
And they're young.
So who knows when a spot's going to open up? It's not like someone all of a sudden can just move out.
Now, I asked this of a person that was here earlier. We talked about mental illness. It was at the mental health center. And I said, we hear about mental illness all the time, and the question is, they didn't want to answer it because is there a cure? I mean, do people actually improve and get better, or is this something that someone's going to live with their whole life? Or do we know yet? Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I think like we touched on a little bit earlier, I don't know if there's necessarily a cure, but there are ways at least to help children, especially with autism early on, going through that early intervention process, finding the services to cater to them specifically. And studies have shown that early intervention really helps and is key, like Keiko said earlier, in helping them move on later in life and find the services that they need. But if they don't have that, we saw in our documentary that, people really struggled as far as, with social skills, things like that. But as far as a cure is concerned, I don't think we really have any answers yet.
Yeah, I think that's the standard answer for any mental illness. There really isn't a cure. There's treatment, there's coping, there's living with it, there's learning to adapt to it. So anyway, we'd love to have some calls from you folks. 721-1290 if you'd like to call us. Our lines are open. We'll be right back. Hey, we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, and Cheese It Guys, the boss, is on the line. So, Denise Dowling with the University of Montana joining us this morning. Denise, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy that I don't have to be in the studio this morning. I'm still hanging around in my pajamas.
All right. So what do you have to say to these three?
We are too, Just
Yeah, we're in our jammies too, Denise. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Glad to hear it. I wanted to hear Joe talk because I didn't even know he was there.
Hey, Denise.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
One of the things that Joe accomplished, he was a photographer on a section that was incredibly real, just a moment with a mom and her autistic son. And I'd like Joe to talk about how he managed to capture such an honest moment, because when cameras come into the room, often people change their behavior, and Joe is just a master of really capturing some honest and awkward, painful moments, and I'd like him to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thanks for the call, Denise. Appreciate that. Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I think I'd most likely credit our character Melanie Hawk, the mom that we worked with. She just from day one, the first time I talked to her, was just all in, all willing to give us full access, and just to show her life as honestly as we could. She understood the importance of that. So the moment that Denise was mentioning happened in our first time at the Hawk home. Me and my classmate Jana were there with our camera. We were just kind of sitting down with Hunter on the floor. He was playing with Legos and drawing, and we were just sitting next to him. He didn't really seem to mind. The camera didn't really freak him out at all. So we were just there. We're pretty much rolling the whole time, and just let Melanie and Hunter do their thing. It really wasn't very hard. It just, everything that happened just happened, and we were lucky enough to be there.
How old was Hunter?
Hunter is 8. Actually, he just turned 9 just a couple weeks back. So he is a 3rd grader in Missoula, goes to Hawthorne. So.
Oh, yeah, let's continue on with our phone calls real quickly. Lynn, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thanks for bringing this subject up. It's one that a lot of people do not understand. I have an autistic 16-year-old son. We found out about it when he was in 1st grade, and the teacher had our son walking the hallways with the janitor because they didn't know what to do with him. Wow. And my wife and my mother are both school teachers, and when we finally wrapped our heads around what was going on, because you just don't get it when you're first learning about autism, a mental illness with a child, you got a lot to absorb and a lot to take in. And when we finally wrapped our heads around it, we pulled him out. We homeschooled him because it's a much safer environment, because other children find kids with handicaps, and they do all the wrong things to these kids. And what I mean by that, picking on them and just not being nice to kids who don't get social behaviors. And autism spectrum, you guys were talking about earlier, that, what does it cover? The autism spectrum is growing so huge that it encompasses about 360 degrees of mental illness, where in the past it was never associated with it. That's why it's growing so incredibly huge in numbers. 1 out of 150 kids, I think, is where they're at now. And basically, it's just encompassing everything that has to do with mental illness. My son, they call high functioning. And when you first meet him, he seems perfectly normal and everything. But the more you talk to him, the more you see that the 16-year-old is really functioning most levels at 5 years old. He can't read. He fixates on specific things. In my case, my son, he fixates on tanks. He can tell you every tank there is on the planet.
Lynn, could I ask a favor of you? We have a hard break to hit. Would you mind staying with us? Because we want to hear more of your story, okay? All right, and John, we want to hear your story as well. We need to take a quick break. We'll be right back after the top of the hour. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Talkback, brought to you in part this morning by Bulls Eyewear. They offer some of the lowest prices in town on contact lenses. See Lynette at Bulls Eyewear, 2910 South Reserve. Nissan Hyundai of Missoula celebrating their grand opening sale, offering top dollar for your trade, 0% financing up to 72 months. Also brought to you by Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service, maintenance, and repair, and Dig It Excavating, as they bring 30 years of excellence to every job. Kootenai Creek Village is the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville with the best of western Montana living. Okay, we are back, and unfortunately, I had to interrupt Lynn. He was giving us a very poignant a view of his life with his son. So, Lynn, I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Please continue, sir.
No problem, Peter. I was just going over and listening to what your guests were talking about, and it's fantastic that they're bringing this up. I've done a few documentaries myself in the past, and it's a ton of research, and we the parents who have autistic kids so appreciate that some others are trying to, so to speak, give us a hand to wrap our heads around what we got to deal with. We're going through the same thing right now, what they were just talking about. Our son's 16, and in 2 years he'll be an adult, and how are we going to deal with things as he gets older?
Have you had a chance to plan for that at all, Lynn?
We do it day by day.
Okay.
There's nothing out there, it seems like. I mean, you just got to hunt and learn and figure things out as you go. It seems like every kid that we talk to that is autistic also, every parent and stuff, everybody's situation is totally different.
But it's a completely unique disease, isn't it?
It is. It's mental illness, and every person's mental illness is like every personality. It's different. So, some kids have one that they can't take any noise. Other kids that are autistic are fantastic readers. They're geniuses, but they have zero social skills. It covers everything. One thing I'd like to mention, though, to a lot of people, there's so many people who don't know, there is medicines that will work. There's some really bad medicines, and there's some really good ones. You just got to do a lot of research. We found one called Respin that does amazing things to help our son and other people we've seen take it, and it's very unknown.
All right. Well, Lynn, we certainly appreciate you sharing that with us, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's get John on the line. John, thank you for holding through the break, sir. Please tell us your story.
Well, I don't have a particular story. Where I work over at Eastgate Ace Hardware, there's a lot of autistic families that come in, and they're just a joy to have. It just brings a smile to my face instantly, what their families reflect. Anyhow, I just wanted to comment. I don't think it's a mental disease, a disorder, a handicap, but you don't contract it like you would a disease.
So it's more like a disability then?
Disability.
Okay.
I think that's much more fitting.
Okay.
And
yeah. Well,
I
thank
realize
you for
there's
correction.
medicines that help to do things. I would have been curious to know if that was more in the realm of an herbal medicine or if it was in the realm of a particular drug that gentleman that was just on is finding some success with.
I think it was called Respin, I believe.
Respin, yeah. Maybe I can look that up. Also, I'd be curious to know if the documentary covered the vaccine causes of autism, and I believe that's been proven to be a common cause of autism. And I do not trust the CDC because I think they were in part and parcel of covering up the vaccine connection.
All right. Well, thanks for the call. So what do you think, Keiko? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, John, thank you for calling in. As far as the vaccine thing goes, we addressed it in our documentary very briefly. Basically, how we just talk about it is we just say that studies have shown that it's not true, and we kind of move on for it just because we don't want to open up that can of worms because it's not what we're necessarily trying to talk about. We're talking about aging out and as you get older, what's going to happen, not what caused it.
Is there research, in other words, in your investigations, have you discovered research that is going on in the medical scientific community to be able to define and be able to wrap more of a discussion around what autism is and how it can be treated?
Yeah, absolutely. So we relied heavily on the CDC for most of our statistical sourcing just because it is the group with the most information available. We also went to the Autism Society and Autism Speaks for a lot of information. But yeah, so they're doing a lot of research and they're continually updating. You can go look at their yearly reports, which we've done from 1996 all the way up until now.
Okay, let's get Patty on the line. Patty, thank you for holding. You're on Talk Back with our guests. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it does seem kind of strange that there aren't that many older people that have it, which says to me that vaccines are fairly new.
Well, now hold on a second, Patty. Let me address that because I think autism is such a varied disorder. There's so much that goes into that package that is called autism that it may have been around for a long, long time and they just didn't know how to describe it or diagnose it. Does that make sense?
Well, she had said that there weren't that many there weren't that many older people that had it, so they haven't been able to study it.
That we know of. But anyway, please go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you're right because mental illness is so diversified and so serious for the families. But what I wanted to say is you look at your property tax and you see, $300 going to the general fund and this and that, and I think it was, don't quote me, but like 58 cents going to mental illness. And I really believe that should be doubled or tripled because you see these people wandering around with, they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, and you
talk about folks who are downtown that.
And you know that they have a mental illness.
Sure.
I mean, you look at them and you just want to say, you need help, or but you can't take them home with you because But I think that we should have more than 58 cents spent for mental illness because I know that there's a lot of big contracts wielded around,
sure.
For the Pavarello Center and for the university and all these things that seem to go to the same people. And I think that mental illness should be way up there on the top of the list, not 58 cents.
Okay, Patty, thanks for the call. Hey, we're up against a break, 721-1290. Sue, we're going to get your call on, and our guests are here with us. We have Joe, we have Keiko, and Sarah, and we're talking about the film, the Aging Out with Autism, and we're going to continue with this conversation in a moment. We have 3 lines open at 721-1290. Welcome back. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309, or you can make your comments on our Facebook page. So Sue's been waiting on the phone. Good morning, Sue. Thanks for holding.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy birthday, Peter.
Thank you very much. What's going on?
Well, I have a son who's about to turn 21, and he's a high-functioning Asperger's kid, and I really don't like the reference that autism is a mental illness. It's not a mental illness, so I wish people would stop saying that.
So how would you characterize it then?
Well, I characterize it as a learning disorder.
Okay.
And there's a spectrum. There's a reason they call it a spectrum because it's huge. There's some kids that are totally. My Sam has some cousins. I think a lot of it is also genetic in families because we have a set of twins that were in vitro, born in vitro, and they were both severely autistic, and they don't speak very much. But Sam, on the other hand, is very, he thank God for the University of Montana Lab School, because when he was, 4 years old, he, after a couple of weeks of preschool, they had a talk with us, and they said, we think something's up. And the whole key with autism is early intervention, and the earlier you can get help, the better. And he's in college now, and there's some programs at the University of Montana.
Great.
The Mosaic program, which puts a kid on the spectrum with a mentor to help them navigate all the social stuff that goes on in college, because sometimes kids they socially just don't fit in, and that's the really hard thing. But I didn't even know about this movie, Aging Out Autism in Montana, and it's on tonight. Is that right?
Tonight at 8, right?
Correct, on Montana PBS.
And is that something that can be, like, you can watch it any time, or is it just going to be on? Because I just Googled it on.
Well, the best way to watch it for sure is tonight at 8 on PBS.
Right.
But I think they may make it available later. I don't know.
It might just be a YouTube,
Yeah, well,
Right.
after it airs on PBS, I believe it'll be available online as well, and then I'm sure it'll air a couple other times on PBS, but for sure tonight at 8 on PBS.
Okay.
Sue, before we let you go, I have a real quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You said you don't like the term mental illness, but you're okay with the term mental disorder. Why do you not like the term illness but like the term
Not
disorder?
mental disorder. It's because for me personally, it's a learning disability. And I guess when I think of mental disorders, what I see is
it has a
someone who
negative
doesn't-
connotation, right?
It has a negative connotation, and my son and other kids that I know with Asperger's syndrome they're not mentally challenged. They're smart kids. They're very smart kids. They, I don't know. I guess it's just a negative connotation. I don't think of Sam as being mentally ill
Okay.
by any means.
Well,
So it's a spectrum. It's a huge spectrum, but it's not a mental illness. So,
Okay. Well, Sue,
anyway.
we appreciate that. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, you bet.
Always a pleasure to talk with you. 721-1290 is our number. All 4 lines open if you'd like to. Yeah. Okay. So tell us what's going on, where we can see the film, and just one quick wrap up from anyone about Joe, I want to hear from you as well. When and where can we see it?
Yeah, so our documentary, Aging Out Autism in Montana, on air tonight on Montana PBS at 8 p.m., and then, like we were just telling Sue, afterwards it should be available online on the Montana PBS website.
Excellent. You guys are great. Joe, what did you learn from all this? I know the reason I haven't had you talk much, I can't see him. He's behind my screen, so he's the disappearing man. So
It's really hard to see. He's about 5 feet tall.
Yeah, he's a tall guy. Anyway, so tell me what you learned through all of this, and what are you going to take with you? This obviously was a school project, but it affected you, right?
Oh yeah, big time. It's easily the best thing I worked on when I was in college, and secondly, just kind of gave me some new kind of sensitivity towards people with disabilities. Everybody that we worked with was so willing to tell us their story, and so just all of our characters were as good as you could ask for. So yeah, it just taught me. I didn't know much about autism. It just really opened my eyes to all the people that live with it and their challenges.
Right. Well, thanks. I want to thank all you guys for being here, Keiko and Joe and Sarah. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We do have one question before we go. Katie says, how about organizations like Opportunity Industries? Do they provide an option for autistic children who are aging out for day services, employment, and possible group homes and independent living arrangements? Where does social management services fit in providing supervisory services for adults?
Wow, so that's a big question. So we didn't really look at any of that specifically in our documentary. What we focused on was finding these kids that are aging out somewhere to live, a lifelong living opportunity. And I don't know if that's what these organizations are doing. But so that's kind of where we focused. And it was mainly more so these family stories and what it's like for them and really the emotional side of it.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks again for being with us. We appreciate it. We're going to take a break, come back, and have some open phones. So keep. All right. We are back on Talk Back, and thanks to our guests for being with us today. A very enlightening program there about autism. Again, that's airing on tonight on the PBS. So there you go.
And so anyway, it is open phones. If you have anything you want to talk about, give us a call, 721-1290. I found a really interesting little website the other day, and I thought about some of my listeners, and a little bit about you, Peter. Now, Peter's married, happily married, and you have a birthday today, is that right?
I do, yes.
Now, as far as I understand, they actually map your birthday to a Mayan calendar with a 1,000-year cycle, right?
Actually, I have a rather unusual birthday story.
Really?
In that when I was born, 22 years ago, my niece Michaela was born.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Both born on the 24th of May. So, being the reality-challenged guy that I am, I simply have assigned all of my birthdays since then to her. So now, instead of being 22, she's 44.
Oh, how nice.
And and I'm still in my 40s, see? So, even though my hair may be gray and that sort of thing, I'm not as old as I am.
Yeah, but she was drinking when she was 7, and
she was driving,
almost. If she was a man, she would have been drafted.
Yeah, right, the whole idea. Anyway, so
anyway,
aside from that's good. That's called creating your own reality.
Well, I every morning I come in,
and it's her birthday too. So happy birthday, Michaela. Sorry, go ahead.
And we do a lot of YouTube work, right? We load our videos and stuff, and I noticed Peter's always watching these JFK shooter videos or behind the history, secret stories.
Yeah,
he's really into it. But if he were single and he were that into it, it might be difficult for him to maybe find that other person, to find that that second shooter in his life.
Just kind of
yeah. But for those of you that out there that may be wrapped in you got a different view of the world than other people, and maybe looking for that special someone that shares that worldview. There is now a website, a dating website,
dating service for you.
And so I'm going to play this song is actually, I mean, they're not joking. It looks like a joke. It really does. Like, even on the website, the people are wearing tinfoil hats.
Okay.
But this is awake.dating. And it's a dating website for people that are awake, are able to see the world in a different way than the regular masses.
They can actually see behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
All right. Let's check this out right now.
If you thought it was impossible to meet someone, awake.dating is here for you. Matching all kinds of people is what we do. If you are awake, we'll find you a mate and set you up to go on that perfect date. From false flag to anti-GMO to ETs and DDs, we're the way to go. Anti-vaccinators and government haters, Masons and Illuminati, we're the matchmakers. Realists and truthers, or if you are awake, we're here to find you the perfect mate. It's free to sign up right now, so no more waiting. Be sure to visit awake.dating.
Now, if you were really that conspiratorial, wouldn't you think this was actually set up by the CIA to track you?
Actually, I want to play it backwards. And when I'm going to see if it says, Paul is dead, Paul is dead. So, anyway. All right. That's a little fun. 721-1290. You got to wonder, I'm sure there are a lot of folks who sit around in their parents' basements looking at, websites and going to comic book conventions and whatever it might be.
Well, MizCon's coming up this Friday.
Yeah, who have a hard time, getting into the thing of normal society.
By the way, I'll probably go to MizCon. So,
well, that was your world for a while. I mean, you
play board games. Yeah,
you're a board game guy. Anyway, so what is on your mind today, ladies and gentlemen? 721-1290. As you can tell, we are drifting on the sea without a sail, without a rudder. Anyway, but you did find some other stuff to share with us today.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to play. So we played the other day. One of the women that had
Juanita Broderick.
Yeah, her case against Bill Clinton in her own words.
Right.
Well, I have another one. This is an interview from 1994.
Wow.
This is Paula Jones.
Oh, Paula Jones. Wow.
But she's also very vocal about this election. Unlike many of the women that haven't talked that much, she recently did an interview with the Daily Mail. So maybe we'll play that a little bit later, too.
Well, we're up against a break, so we'll do that when we come back in lieu of phone calls from you, wonderful folks. 721-1290. What's on your minds? Open phones. We might play this, but it looks like we're going to hear from Mike when we come back after the break. Right after this. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. Okay, we got Mike on the line. Mike, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yeah, since you got an opening to the phone today, there was something in the paper that kind of annoyed. Well, it really does annoy me because one is there's a 11-year-old boy who really would like to be in scouting. He needs a new pair of boots and blah, other things. Okay. Now, and there was two 17-year-olds. One needs a suit because he's in speech team. One needs a bicycle. Now, what's wrong with that picture? You're all supposed to give them money. What's wrong with that picture?
Well,
the picture is this. When I ran a Boy Scout troop, we didn't give them kids nothing. You wanted to go make some money to be stuff. You went out and worked for it. You went from door to door. We went door to door with these kids. The Scoutmaster's Handbook said never do anything for a boy that he can't do himself. And that is what is wrong with this country. We got a 17-year-old who needs a suit. Okay, maybe you should go to the neighbors around and ask her if you can rake your lawn or do something. One needs a bicycle. Did it ever occur to somebody to tell him, go down to the bike shop and see if you can put some hours in and maybe he'll give you a bike? That is what is wrong. We are a country of, I deserve it because I'm here. That 11-year-old doesn't deserve nothing but some work, and then he can buy his own dadgum boots. And I'd put him to work if he come by as somebody. I haven't seen one of these Boy Scout people come by, and I've been here for over 20 years, and I'd always put him to work doing something. It is just disgusting for an old Scoutmaster, and I'm just really annoys the crap out of me, to put it mildly.
All right, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call. All right, 721-1290.
If you need a job, visit Mike.
That's right. You know, I to be honest, that's exactly the way I was raised.
Yeah.
If you wanted something, my mom would say, get on those two strong legs of yours and go over to the neighbors and offer to mow or, to trim or to, shovel snow or, clean off rocks or do whatever, and they will pay you, and then you will use the money that you have earned to get what you want. Peter.
It's a good lesson. Yeah, more and more people are waiting till they're older to have jobs or not have jobs, as the case may be.
There you go. Okay.
Facebook is...
Oh, go ahead. We have Facebook Watch.
Yeah, so Rena on Facebook, there's a lot of people, Tim included, talking about vaccination and the link to autism, apparently. Rena says, I know that cause is never something people want to talk about, but lots of people are talking about it. I wondered about the condition, and it took me about 15 minutes to discover that 30,000, more or less, vaccine injuries are reported every year. And the government fights every claim of injury in court. And the manufacturers have no liability beginning in 1986.
Now, what do they mean about a vaccine injury?
I think it's a bad side effect from getting a vaccine.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, all right.
The taxpayers pay for the injury. Don't make me explain what swelling on the brain is. And Randy,
it's encephalopathy,
or encephalitis, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And then Randy responded by posting one of those PolitiFact true or false claims, and it says mostly false on the claim. But there you go. Yeah, it's definitely something to debate about. I have a hard time buying the idea that the entire CD. Now Peter, by the way, we just had this discussion during the break. He's big into JFK. Couldn't possibly have been killed by one shooter. It had to have been done maybe by a magical discharge. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe a future presidential candidate's father was involved. I don't know what all Peter believes on this case. But he says we'll never know because the government is covering it up. Because
the reason we'll never know is because there are now so many conspiracy theories out there that whatever the truth ever, if anybody ever knew the truth, we would never know it now because there's no way to sort between this and that and the other thing. So it's going to be one of those things you just have to put it aside. Now, it was 50-some years ago. So
there's tons of cosmologies out there. People think that the planet is inside of a black system that you can't see, that there's exoplanets right next to Earth. There's one just on the other side of the sun that we'll never see because it goes in the same rotation with us. And I mean, there's so many ideas out there. Do you still think we'll never know that the Earth revolves around the sun? No. The number of different cases doesn't increase or decrease the validity of some of those cases.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that just because lots of people have lots of theories doesn't mean you can't know which one is the most likely.
Well, but no one will ever agree with you. That's just it.
Well, yeah, most people agree. In fact,
are you trying to tell me that most people in this country think Lee Harvey Oswald was the sole shooter that killed President Kennedy? You're trying to tell me that? That is nonsense.
Most of the people involved in the research, most of the people that did the studies on that case, yes, they mostly agree. In fact, I think they all agreed. That's why they published the papers.
The Warren Commission report. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, we're up against another break. 721-1290 is our number. I'm not buying it, you know. Ordinarily, you know me, I'm a pretty down-to-earth guy, okay, but the Kennedy assassination was right in my wheelhouse. It happened in 1963. I was in the 5th grade, and I will never forget all that went on from that point on. It changed the fabric of this country. It just did.
No, I wasn't in 5th grade, but I was in college when 9/11 happened.
Right.
And there's people from my era that swear up and down that had to have been a conspiracy. George Bush did this, right?
Right. Yeah.
He instigated it. And when you look at these people that are all like the truther movement, I know in your soul, you kind of like shake your head.
I do because I watched it happen.
Okay, this is me shaking my head at you from your 5th grade chair. Okay.
Anyway, so let's put it this way: some conspiracies I slide into more easily than others. One is the JFK.
What are the other ones? I'm curious.
Well,
let's vent it all out.
That's pretty much it.
Is it just that one?
I don't deal very, and I guess because I lived in Washington D.C. when JFK was shot. My family went into the city and saw the funeral procession.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was
real.
As a matter of fact, we were driving. Actually, we were trying to avoid all the traffic, and we were driving around a less populated area in D.C. And got to remember, it was late. It was late November, just after Thanksgiving weekend, and we drove past a church. And you could hear the singing coming out. It was obviously a black church because there was a spiritual of some kind coming out of it. It was so moving. And keep in mind, I'm like 11. I'm like in 5th grade, okay? And I was so moved by that. I've never forgotten that. If everything goes away about that weekend, I will remember that moment as long as I live. It was very moving and very surreal. But anyway, we're up against a break. And Al, we're going to get your phone call here in just a minute, 721-1290. See, I think people define themselves by the era in which they grew up, then certain things happened. And it makes an imprint on what you think and what you believe and how you see the world. So that happened to me.
So you're saying because you were born at that time, that's your reason for believing that JFK was not shot by a single shooter?
Let's put it this way. I've done enough reading and enough of my own, looking at various sources to think it doesn't wash with me.
So do you think it was
But again, that's just me. You know what, John?
Was it an inside government or a communist government
Let
thing?
me tell you, I could be completely wrong. So we're going to be, at least I'm open to that. We'll be right back. We're back. Talkback 721-1290 is the number. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Let's get to the phone and say good morning to Al. Thanks for holding, sir.
Well, when Peter mentioned about the JFK conspiracy.
Oh, no, here we go.
No, it just kind of got to thinking a few months ago at breakfast, somebody mentioned about a Hitler conspiracy that he was got on a boat, went to South America with other German people, and I'd never heard of that before up until a few months ago.
Haven't you seen the Discovery Channel, Hunting Hitler?
No,
it's
I watched
amazing.
that, but I guess I missed that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So what do you believe on that?
Who knows? There's all sorts of, the problem with those programs is they drop a little line in the water, right? And you kind of grab onto it, and they just start reeling you in and reeling you in and reeling in, and then they'll take a break and say, and you see all these outtakes of, oh my gosh, and then we'll be back right after this.
Now,
you know
what
what I mean?
happens if somebody changes the name of what you just said?
Right.
What happens if the name Hitler is changed to Kennedy?
Yeah. What about it?
Well, you seem to believe in these Kennedy conspiracies, but not the Hitler one.
Let's put it this way. I did not live through the Hitler time, but I did live through the Kennedy time. So it's much more germane to my own personal experience.
We're both in the same boat. Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thanks for the call, Al. All right. In other words, I try not to talk too much about stuff that I don't really know about.
And, a lot of Nazis did escape to South America.
They
Many of
did.
them were later caught, right?
Right, exactly. Rena, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi, this is Rena.
Yeah, you're up. Go ahead, ma'am.
I also don't buy the, Lee Harvey Oswald lone shooter theory, and much of the Warren Commission has been debunked, even in Congress during the Nixon administration.
Right.
But
In the 1970s, right, and then again in the 1990s, it was the Congressional Committee found that there probably was a conspiracy involved in the death of President Kennedy. So.
I read Roger Stone's book, and Roger Stone is a big insider back in Washington D.C. He's been, born and raised there, and he explains the whole thing. And George H.W. Bush was involved in the CIA and was a CIA director, so whatever happened, he's well aware of. I mean, knows exactly what happened. But Roger Stone says that certain mafia members involved with the Cuban, the whole Cuban mass, they were very angry with JFK because he didn't provide air cover
for the Bay of Pigs, right?
And so they, and of course, if what they don't realize is that if America had gone in there, Russia would have attacked us. And, so at any rate, the CIA was very angry with him. And then the whole mob thing, because his dad pulled in all the favors, and then Bobby went after them. So it was an inside job between the FBI, the CIA, and the mob.
Yeah, during his term, Robert Kennedy's brother was the Attorney General. That's true.
Right.
So are you an inside job guy too, Peter? Do you think that it was the U.S. government?
Well, let's put it this way, and I think I've said enough about what I think. But let me just say this: hopefully I'm wise enough to know that I'm probably wrong. But there are certain things that pique my interest and make me want to look a little deeper. And at least I know, no matter how deep you dig, it's like eating an artichoke. You know what I mean? You'll never really quite be done with it. And
I think that
it's not very satisfying when you are done.
That is a very healthy way to approach it. To say, I don't know, I have questions, I have doubts, I'm investigating.
Right.
That's a healthy way to approach it.
Yeah.
To go around and say, I know that it was the other way, the government was conspiring against him, that I have all the evidence that I need, that it's all rigged, that seems to be a much more dangerous position.
Well, let's put it this way. I try not to be a nutcase about it. Let's put it that way. All right. Well, thanks for the call, ma'am.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Bobby, you're on Talkback. Hi, go ahead.
Okay, you got me on this conspiracy thing. I thought, I'm not calling in.
Okay.
But then when the Hitler thing came up, Hitler had syphilis, and he was going through the advanced stages of syphilis, which is deadly.
Yeah.
So there's no way that he escaped.
That was pre-penicillin, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. And
Right.
if he did escape, he escaped in a box. Okay, he's dead. He died back then. All right. Then the whole Kennedy thing, I'm logical. I know how to shoot guns. If you shoot something from many stories up and you're aiming at something's head, you will shoot it in the top of the head. Kennedy was shot from the base of his skull. It took out the right side of his skull. You can see the pictures of the autopsy. It's on the computer. All right? And Jackie, actually, when he got shot, of course she was in shock. She reached down, picked up the piece of his skull, and tried to put it back on top of his head. You cannot shoot somebody from overhead and blow the top of their head off from the base of the skull to the top of the head. So he wasn't shot by Oswald. You need to read that book, Dr. Mary's Monkey, I'm telling you.
Okay.
I'm just saying. You
Okay.
really do.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks
Bye.
for the call. Jan, we're going to get your call. Thanks a lot, John. Wow. You just had to keep digging and keep poking at it.
Happy birthday. Everyone agrees with you.
We're going to be right back. Stay with us. 1 minute timeout. Hey, thanks for joining us on Talkback on this Tuesday, May 24th. Rain still coming down. It probably will, by the way, all the way through Memorial Day weekend. So just so you'd like to know.
Okay, I have one big question. Bobby, I wish you were still on the line. Maybe Peter knows the answer.
Okay.
From my understanding, they have all of the bullets, all of the bullet fragments.
No, they don't.
They don't. Okay. Well, that's because you believe there are other bullets. But all the ones that they have...
Well, don't forget the magic bullet theory. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, but all of the bullets that they have were fired from the same rifle that Oswald was shooting. The same one that has his palm print on it, the one that was registered in his name.
Mandler Carcano, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So why not other bullets? Where are they?
That's a very good question. All right, 721-1290 is our deadline too. Let me get now. Here come the calls now. Jan, you are on Talkback. Hi.
Yes. Say, everybody's seen the Zapruder film about 1,000 times.
Right.
Now, I also was a kid when that happened, and I remember seeing all the stuff. But what? There is a documentary on the internet right now.
There's like 5,000 documentaries on the internet.
Yeah,
But go ahead, Jan.
But I'm going to talk about the one I'm describing here.
Okay.
It covers everything from the time Kennedy's landed in the airport throughout the motorcade. It was a combination of all the films of all the news crews.
Okay.
Now, the Zapruder film was taken down from Kennedy's right and looking down at him in the motorcade.
Mm-hmm.
There's another film from a newsmaker on the other side of the car behind it when the shooting happened. And then as soon as the limo took off and Jackie went to reach back and jump out and grab part of his skull off the trunk lid,
okay,
they took off, and then cops and everybody in that whole area did not look back towards the book exchange building. They looked behind the guy with taking the Zapruder film.
Behind the grassy knoll where the
That's
plume
right.
the plume
So
of
it would have
smoke
been
was
to the
rising.
right
Yeah. Right.
and behind the Zapruder guy taking the film.
Yeah.
And the cops came in on their motorbikes, ran. They're unleashing or unholstering their weapons, and they're all running up the hill to that parking lot, not towards the book building.
Right.
So
you know what's
pretty
really
suspicious
you know what's really sad, Jan, and aside from all the stuff that we love to talk about here, what's really sad is that there are so many people in their 20s, teens or 20s, that say, "Who the heck was JFK anyway?"
I don't
know.
know.
What I mean?
I think most people in that age group know JFK, if they're going to know a president, because Democrats talk him up all the time like he was some big hero.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, he's another philanderer.
And I remember the day the principal came to the classroom door at the school I was in.
Right.
And knocked on the door. The teacher came out, and she was talking out there. She came back in with a little transistor radio in her hand. Back then, those were pretty cool, Not everybody had one. And she put it on the desk. She says, "Kids, the president has just been shot."
Right.
Well, I'll never forget that.
That's right.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Thanks, Jan.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
the call, man. All right. I had the same experience. 5th grade, we were out playing kickball for recess. Teachers said to the kids, "Come on in. There's something horrible's happened." And like, we're kids. What? What's so horrible that we have to interrupt our kickball game?
Yeah.
And it was terrible. All right.
Wow.
Let's.
Did they release you from school?
No. Mark, how are you on Talkback?
Hey, good morning. Like everyone else, I was at Tucson High School, and I was a freshman, and I was in algebra class.
Okay.
You just never forget that.
Right.
Okay. The other comment I have to make, in 1977, I was privileged to view the original Zapruder film.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Okay.
How did forgive me, but how did that happen?
I was at a liberal East Coast university, and I got invited by my professor.
Okay.
Who was reviewing it.
All right.
Anyway, I have no doubts that he died that day, having seen that film.
No.
I haven't. You mean JFK?
Say again, I can't hear you.
You mean JFK died? I don't think anyone's made the case that JFK didn't die.
Oh, I thought someone had.
Oh no. He yeah. When your head is blown almost completely off, you're dead.
Yeah.
So far,
Yeah,
the cases being made are that either Oswald was the lone gunman. John is on that fence. Then there's others that say he was killed by multiple people, or as the case was made by a previous caller, by the CIA in conjunction with the FBI,
And with the mob
and the mob.
Don't forget the mob. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't buy
And the
any of
Cubans.
that.
Don't forget the Cubans. They're all in the mix there.
And
Yeah.
Cruz's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, Mark. Thanks for the call.
Take care.
Appreciate it, sir. All right, so we're moving right along here. Doug, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call, you guys. You know, I've shot a few pumpkins in my life, and with a rifle, and I've yet to shoot one where the pumpkin is actually recoiled back towards me, the shooter. And, you know, like previous callers have said, you know, Jackie, she was reaching back behind, you know, on the trunk of the motorcade or the limousine there to retrieve part of his skull. Well, you know, I don't know. Ballistics just don't seem to work that way. You know, when you shoot something from high and in the rear, something like a pumpkin, it's not going to come back towards you. So I think that's a perfect. I think the evidence is right there, right in front of us, that there was a second shooter.
Well, you know, I hear these arguments, and obviously the whole magic bullet theory and these other ones that involve the physics being impossible. And I've seen credible sources talk about the trajectories and the impacts and the velocities, and they come up with a different conclusion, except for that they're experts and they're not just me looking at an internet video.
Yeah, I know. That's yeah. I don't have any proof to back it up. It just seems very odd that, you know, that the Zapruder film shows that she's reaching back for his skull, and you know, you can talk to avid shooters and they'll tell you that that's not. And maybe it could happen. I'm not saying, you know, nature does some funny things, but the Full Metal Jacket from, you know, say 2,200 feet per second, I don't see the object that you're hitting coming back towards you.
All right, thanks for the call.
You betcha.
Appreciate it. Yeah, well, I don't know how we get into this, but here we go. Bobby,
Okay.
go ahead.
Jackie reached back over the top of the trunk because the Secret Service agent was running up and she went to grab his hand.
Okay.
The piece of the skull went under the front seat. So, no. It was, if you watch the video, which I was in the second grade. I saw it. She reached back to grab, because the Secret Service agent was running up to the back of the car.
Yeah, that was Clint Hill.
Yeah, and
So
she
much
reached back to
personal
grab him.
Expert testimony from 2nd and 5th grade. I feel, you know, overwhelmed.
Go ahead, Eddie. Just ignore him. Go ahead.
So that's it. You know, that's what she did. Everybody knows it, and so
Okay.
on the video, just watch it.
All right. Thanks for the call. Okay, we're almost out of time. What's on tomorrow's fabulous show that is not JFK related?
Who knows? Well, we surely can work it into any topic. No, we'll be speaking with a British trade negotiator. He deals with trade and agriculture. Directly deals with Montana with the Montana World Affairs Council.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Stay dry.